obeisance. It means here there was a king in Tibet that made a decree for a period of time that as they were translating these amazing ideas from India into Tibet and putting it into the Tibetan language, where the Tibetan canon is, etc., that they should put the Sanskrit word of the text at the beginning of a text, and then they should bow to a particular deity to signify, there were all these rules, what the text was roughly about. So if I bow down to Manjushri, it means I'm bowing down to wisdom, which means that the essence of the text would be something to do with emptiness or something like that. In this text, they bow down to the Buddha, because the Buddha can make that correlation between karma and its results, the very subtle workings of karma, which is Shinju Kokyu. Yeah, so here he explains, look, this is the Sanskrit, this is the Tibetan, we bow down to Lord Buddha. Let me catch up. I did that. Okay. The third, now if you've ever studied any Tibetan Buddhist anything, you'll see how much we love lists. So here comes the actual commentary, and the commentary comes in four parts. The first part is the detailed statement of the purpose. In other words, the goal of a book. And if you studied with us before, then you know that there's 4 qualities to a book worth studying. The idea is you only have this sentient human life once that you can use with the state of mind that you have. You have no idea what will happen to you after death. Most likely not the virtue and happiness you've got now because you're using it all up. So this is the dark. But what to do with that special time that you've got now, alive as a sentient creature? What do you do with your precious human life? What do you do with the fortune and leisure you found just this once? Yeah, and so if you're going to read anything, you can read trashy novels, or you could read something that is worth reading. So the 4 main points, there's all these details about how one connects to the other, it has to have a big purpose, like getting you to nirvana, etc. And so he explains that this text is definitely one of those texts worth wasting your life on. Yeah? And the idea that texts are not like we consider books. The idea of these main points is that texts in the Tibetan tradition are these lifelong relationships you have with ideas that will fruit into your reality. So they become your most dear relationship. And you can go back to this text or this sutra or this commentary over and over and over, and it's like a minefield that never ends. It's like a wish-fulfilling jewel. And as you read it each time, your mind will pop into new realizations. So then they talk a little bit, in this part of the Vinaya Sutra, they talk about why this book is worth reading, why it covers this thing. And then we've got the actual commentary. Let me just make sure I'm up to all the right parts. Translation, I told you about that. Commentary of the root text, which is in a few parts. The first part, this is the main body, right? How you go from not having vows, form in your consciousness, to having vows. So how is it? You go into quite a bit of detail on how is it that you could have a life that doesn't have these deep karmas, vows, growing inside of you. Where inside? Is it over here in my ear? Like it goes into all this detail of how these vows, how you go from not having them to having them. Yeah? And here I have to tell you a little bit about the idea of considering discipline as a constraint versus as a freeing up. Because I know that when we say discipline in the West, in the West, we have this idea of this is just going to hold me back. This is going to, I don't know your associations to discipline. Hence the use Vinaya, hence the word duwa. I mentioned it at the beginning of the class. The idea here is that if your reality, if you've understood Kokya reality, that there is an emptiness to everything, that there is the ultimate nature of how things truly function is not the way it seems, but that there is something else making that thing work. And our mind has a lot to do with it on this field of infinite potential we're going to call emptiness. If that's truly how reality's course, if that truly is how I get a ring, if that truly is how I get happy, if that truly is how I stop suffering, if that's the true causation, then vows are the fast track to getting there, a speeded up track to getting there, because you are planting karmas, you are planting in gardens in the field of your perception that will manifest as your reality in the future, and only the Buddha knows how to connect those two, and he's given us advices on how to do that. Understanding through logic and reasoning and going through the motions, then experiencing the results give you a certain certainty. So here in this part of the text, they'll say to you, they're not restraints, these are wins, these are freedoms. This is how you actually explode your reality from the locked cycles that we live in. Oh, I got happy, I got sad. Oh, I got happy, I got sad. Oh, I got a relationship, I'm out of one. Oh, I got a house, I didn't get one. How you go from that to flying. How to fly.
To having long beards.
Long beards, there we go. That's part one, how to go from not having them to having them. Part two is, once you have them, how to stop from damaging them, understanding what can harm them. So they go through a whole series of things that, imagine if you have an atomic seed inside your consciousness that will produce a Buddha you, and like an alchemist that's spent an entire life practicing how to make that miracle elixir, you finally found how to make the elixir. Now you're saying, well, I now know how to make the elixir. I've got all the stuff. And I began the process, how to stop that process from being damaged. So it has its result. So it goes through a whole series of, once you have vows, how to stop them from being hurt. And this has 4 parts. This is important. This is like the meat, if you like, of the Vinaya Sutra. So imagine, I've now found I didn't have vows. I didn't have this atomic seed that creates my alchemical Buddha self. Now I have. How do I keep them from being damaged? This has 4 parts. Are you with me so far? Cool. Relying on outer support. So the Vinaya Sutra mainly deals with monastic vows, which are secret. I'm not supposed to tell you. I don't even know them. I'm not a monk. Yeah. They also deal with lay people's vows, yeah, pratimoksha vows. The power of vows are the same regardless what the vow is. So here it's saying how to keep your vows from being damaged, how to keep that atomic seed from getting hurt. Number 1, you rely on outer support. So if you're in a monastery, and you're a young monk and you get your vows, or a young nun, you get your vows, you get what's called a lay lama. That it's not your heart lama, it's not your special teacher. It's a special person that gets assigned to you to which you behave as if they are your lama. And they will give you advices and they will guide you, and they've been around a while and they know how to make mistakes. And they can prevent you from making mistakes. Traditionally, you followed their advice for up to 10 years. Except for brushing your teeth, pooping, and falling asleep, you ask them how to do everything else. And they will give you advice, and you grow and grow in this advice. And they say that after 10 years, you have some freedom in the monastic sense on how to develop these vows. Yeah. So the outer support is that. The inner support is you remembering over and over and over why you took these vows, why you made the promise. Same with bodhisattva vows, lay people's vows. The inner support, the thing that stops them from being damaged, is returning and growing that seed over and over and saying, at some point, I had this pure renunciation. I saw with the most certainty that I'd ever seen that there is another way to walk through this human existence and not end up like the rest of the planet has been ending up from time without beginning. I saw a glimpse and I believed it and I saw it true. And I promise that I will make these commitments so I can be free from the thing in my mind that causes suffering. And then I can show and others how to not have that experience of suffering. If you can reconnect to that original, true, deepest, most sincere motivation and grow it and label it, you will prevent your vows from being damaged. So it explains some of that stuff. I love this part because you can, just by understanding this, you can apply it to your regular memory. We invent memory, by the way, yeah, all the time. I know that for a fact. You think you know what your past is. Bullshit. Yeah? You don't know what your past is. You think you know what your past is, and you're certain about your past, but it's not the past. That past didn't happen. It's not that way. It never was that way. I know for a fact, for me, that on a very practical level, I was certain of my childhood history in Argentina when I grew up, and I would debate with my sisters and my dad and my mum about exactly where our house was in relation to the big tree and the corner station and the neighbour and the rest, and we would have the most bizarre arguments in Australia, and it motivated me to go to Australia, to Argentina, and prove them wrong, because my mind was right. Boy, I was wrong. More than half of my memories were made up of myself telling me the story of that memory again and again and again. The shape of the house, the colours on the street, the types of trees, the type of people. The people I knew didn't exist. Like, it was so bizarre to have a complete half of your life destroyed. And now I'm either crazy, there's something malfunctioning, or I'm just another human being thinking I'm certain about so many things I'm not. So relabeling a history, relabeling a moment, adding power to a past is also a causation, also creates a future. There's something beautiful about this part of the Vinaya Sutra that tells you, by implication, that you could recreate your history. And it's still, yes, there was a tree, but it wasn't that tree. And yes, there was a neighbor, but it wasn't that neighbor. And there was a history, but it wasn't that history. So what history was it? It's the new history. And that's amazing to think about if you think about what it would be to be a Buddha and consider your entire past, present, and future now, which is a quality of the mind of a Buddha. Then everything is just right. Everything ever was enlightened. But not as a made-up thing, but as a fact. Because it's caused, like everything else in your mind. Okay. Last two parts of this section, how to keep your vows from being damaged, is understanding what works against them. This is the bottom line of the Vinaya Sutra. It describes the vows. It describes what the vows are. It describes at what point you're past an acceptable level of pushing the boundary of that vow to breaking it or not breaking it. The main way to keep you from damaging a solemn promise, a seed, the atomic seed, is to know what the seed is. And so for monks it's like 300 and something, 200 and something, for nuns 300 and something. Vows, promises, bodhisattvas. Do you remember from the course?
148.
Huh?
148?
No? How many bodhisattva vows? We studied them.
18 root
18 root,
and 64. There's 64 others, yeah?
47 others.
Hours.
Yeah. No, cool. But there's a lot to remember and to grow. And together they form your reality. Yeah? So how do you keep them? Know what they are. Like, very basic. And this is beautiful because it describes in detail, and you should, if you take any kind of vow, which if you go to an initiation or an empowerment by a high Tibetan Lama, you're getting them, yeah? Then you should know what they are that are potentially growing in you. Because if you don't know what they are, you might be breaking them. And then there's the part that says keeping them through monastic practices, which are sojong, There's 15 core monastic practices which we're not allowed to know unless we're monastics, but the three famous or main ones are Sojong, which is on a lunar calendar, twice a month, you sit with your Sangha, with your monks and nun friends, and you, in a very beautiful practice, say to each other how you came close to breaking them or how you broke them. You have this confession, purification. You clean any tinging away at your atomic bomb. You clean it away, yeah, and you rejoice, and you do a beautiful practice of rejoicing for yourself and others, and you grow, you return that memory, the beauty in those commitments and vows that you kept in the last 2 weeks together. And every 2 weeks, monks and nuns get together at a certain time of the lunar calendar, right throughout the planet, and do this stuff. And they keep their atomic bombs pure, ready to explode. Then they have this thing called Yarne, which is very strict monastic practices. They go into a 3-month summer retreat. They go into isolation. People cook for them. That the monastics get together and have a very deep practice, 3 months a year. And then they have a breaking out of that, where they have a 2 to 3 week celebration where not anything goes, but it's pretty much like, I'm free, I can watch DVDs, and I can say silly things, and I can put cats on Instagram. I live in Galye, which is that celebration at the end of the summer. So people are released from their summer retreats, and they have that thing. So that they explain that in there. How to restore vows if you damage them. They go back to explaining Sojong and purification practices. The 4 forces are important. And then we got 5 minutes to talk about the most important thing that I want to share with you tonight, which I'll go over about 2-3 minutes, and then we can have a happy birthday song. They have the last part of this third part is the ancillary points, and it talks about how to construct monasteries, like how to do all the physical things that surround keeping monastics together. Yeah. And one of those amazing things, and this is where the original instruction was written for the drawing of the Wheel of Life. Yeah. Then it has concluding remarks. But I wanted to share with you, if you've done any study on the Wheel of Life, which encapsulate the entire teaching of the Buddha in pictorial form, right? This is the opening lines of that auxiliary section. It's good and auspicious to say the sound. So say with me, please. Gokkang du korwe, korlo o, shang parja o. The o is do it, yeah? And it means this. Put that painting of the wheel of suffering, or Bhava Chakra, suffering life, in the foyer. Give it 5 parts. Remember I told you this is how the Vinaya Sutra is written? It's like, do this, give it 5 parts. Draw it over here. Yeah. So we were lucky enough to be in Upper Mustang, and they were all over the place. So this is our dear Rachel, the Bhava Chakra describing the entire path out of samsara. Has very clear descriptions on how it's drawn, and it's in the foyer of it's in the foyer of here of every monastery, because they follow the Vinaya Sutra to draw them, right? And it's a 7-part instruction. Let's see if I can do 7 in 4 minutes. The first part of the instruction says draw the 5, which is the main part of the wheel. Draw the 5 realms of existence, which are I'll put it up there, right? The pleasure. So these are the devas and asuras, pleasure or near pleasure beings, and the human beings. And that's the top half of the Bhava Chakra of the Wheel of Life. This is the part of samsara, the part of the suffering cycles that we've been discussing, that is on the good side. Then you have the 3 lower realms. Suffering with even less control or perceived control, even less amount of happinesses than we have. Yeah, and this is the animal realms, the pretas or hungry ghosts, craving spirits, and then the hell realms. There's a couple of stories about how the wheel came about. There's 2 main stories. There's one that is a beautiful story of two kings out gifting each other, and the ultimate gift became, someone went up to the Buddha and said, "What's the ultimate gift I can give to anyone?" And he said, "How about a picture of me?" Because upon seeing it, they will wake up. Yeah, and then he instructed on how to paint the wheel of life with him at the top right. You see it over there. Yeah. So that's one story. Beautiful story. Another story, the part that describes the realms over here, is one of his disciples who was a monastic, began longing and missing his wife in particular, but his sensory life. Yeah, and so the Buddha requested that one of his disciples take him down to experience the realm of other beings other than humans, and what the rest of samsara was filled like. And like in Dante's Inferno, he entered a hell realm and experienced for a fraction of a second what it was, which was a long time for him, what it was to be in that kind of existence, to be in a realm of that kind of existence. That this wasn't the only way that beings exist, that there are other ways that being, and based on when he came out of that state, meditation journey, whatever it was, the Buddha asked him to draw what he saw, and he drew the hell realms. That's another story. So there's the 5 realms. In other words, the Buddha said there's 5 possible ways or variations in which sentients are locked in this world with us. And we can see and verify 2, humans and animals. But he said there's more. Then he said draw the intermediate beings, the beings that are Zukye. Do you remember those? Zukye birth. Bardo is the implication. Zukye means, from the last course, miraculous birth, instantly appear. Remember that? They call them snow eaters or miraculously born. Yeah. So these are the Bardo beings. Thanks. And he says paint them in a chain representing how they're going up and down these realms of samsara. In other words, the darkness is your mental conceptions, the things that are in your mind, your deeds of body, speech and mind, in essence. Those things grow into your reality, and some of them will drag you down in a chain, and then others will take you up the other side. So he says, draw them like that, how we forever cycling through this and popping out into any one of the 5 forms. Then he says, draw the 3 poisons. And usually it's liking, what do they say? This is a Geshe Michael term, ignorant liking, ignorant disliking, ignorance.
Attachment and aversion.
That people say attachment and aversion, right? But I love Geshe Michael's translation of ignorant liking and ignorant disliking, because how much attachment do you have millisecond by millisecond? The point here is that we are forever, 65 times our mind moves every finger snap, right? And within that time, this, at the core of the wheel, the hub of all the turning, of cycling, of suffering and happiness and suffering and happiness, comes from this state of mind that says, I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like, I want, I don't want, and the action that causes. Those 2 are represented by the chicken, which originally in the sutra is described as a pigeon. That's ignorantly liking it, pecks. I want that ring, I want. Yeah, and we're doing it constantly. He's taking too long, it's after 9:30. No, that's not liking, is it? That's the snake, ignorant disliking, which means shedding the skin. Yeah, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. So our minds are forever sitting there at a deep level, like a current, under a huge river of ice. It is flowing fast and strong with like, don't like, like, don't like, don't like. And if everything has a result, that stuff creates your world. The basis of all suffering is these 2 states of mind, liking and disliking ignorantly. Now the pig is ignorance. Both those animals are coming out from the pig's mouth because it's described that it is ignorance. Not ignorance as in pigs are stupid or you're stupid. Ignorance of not knowing true causation, not knowing exactly the ultimate nature of things. We are operating like the crabs in the bucket of samsara, thinking that if I want that ring, I can just take it, and that caused me to get the ring, and that's not true, the Buddha said. You're ignorant if you think you get things by taking. There is another way. It's Shinto-kokya to you humans. It's very hidden to you humans. But the only way, Hector, you ever got to feel that you have a worthwhile ring in your hand is because something else caused it, not taking. Taking begets taking. Giving begets giving. Yeah? I think I said that wrong, but you get the idea. Then he said, draw the 12 links of dependent origination. And this is the seal, the thing that locks us into our state of coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. This is explained usually in the Prajnaparamita Sutras in detail, but it's talking about the mechanism through which we are forced to be birthed and rebirthed and birthed. And you think you're human, you think you're this, and that's it, nothing ever happens. Do you think nothing happens after, or what happens after? If you came into this world the way you came, nothing caused it? Was it your mum and dad? Like, it goes through all these teachings go into all these explanations that forces you to consider and break open the idea that you are limitless. Your consciousness does not stop. And if that's true, then what modality will you appear? What modality will you be? And then he says, okay, grab that whole thing, all that stuff I just taught you, and put it all in the clutches of Mr. Death, the clutches of impermanence, which is the fact that when you were born, you will die. Minute to minute destruction happening from the inside out. There's nothing that's going to kill you that comes from outside. There's no truck, there's no cancer, there's nothing. If everything is a perceptual event forced on you by your karma, then you were born. If you're in samsara, you were born with the fact that you will stop. And so he says, every being in that realm, all those 5 realms, forced to perceive the world, I like, I don't like. And in that forcing, they do stupidity, they do ignorant actions that cause more of the same. And then at the big, they come and go, they come and go, they rise and drop, arise and drop. And then he says, draw that white heavenly body with the Buddha outside. And what that means is the outside, this vicious circle of samsara, the reality that we are forever unhappy. Even when we get what we want, we get itchy by wanting more later. The reality of that dissatisfaction, that samsaric state of mind, can be transcended. You can, it is possible. It's another course thing. You can perceive your whole experience as that of an enlightened being. So draw that white heavenly body, the moon, this part is called Dawa, representing what? Nirvana. Freedom from having any conceptuality of darkness, negativity or anything, nothing disturbing your mind. And the path to go there, the Buddha pointing at it. And then at the bottom, write the 2 verses. This is the second last slide. Yeah? And the 2 verses are this. Take this up and give that up. Enter into the Buddha's teaching. Destroy the forces of the Lord of Death like an elephant crushing a house of reeds. So what it's saying here is like, take this up and give that up. Give up the samsaric way of trying to get things the way you think you get them. That's not the way. Take this up with a wisdom side. Know what to do and know what not to do if you want to get out of samsara. Yeah? Enter into the Buddha's teaching. He's seeing ultimate reality. Enter into that state of causation. And then not only will you get diamond rings, but you can destroy your perception of death, of you as a dying thing. You can destroy the fact that you die the way we think we die. And that transition, that process for your mental continuum can be a completely different thing. It's like, use these teachings. Give up the old way of doing things because you know where you're going to end up. Everyone is ending up in the same way. Take this way up. Take a different way up. Enter into the Buddha's teaching. What's the Buddha's teachings? It's the teachings on Vinaya. Wisdom. 3 trainings, the 3 baskets, right? Take this up. Destroy the forces of the Lord of Death. How do you destroy them? How do you stop up perceptual event of your own death as death. Like an elephant crushing a house of reeds. And there's a whole bunch of symbolism in here. An elephant is this mighty, big, strong force. Crushing a house of reeds is like nothing. It's like a China bull in a...
China.
No, China bull in a... One of those?
Right.
Yeah, you understand what I mean? Yeah. But the house of reeds, the reeds are empty inside. There is no house of reeds. The reeds are fragile, impermanent appearances. Mostly they're hollow. They're empty of having that nature. Like an elephant destroying a reed house is exactly how you will perceive yourself stopping death, as a perceptual event that kills you if you enter the Buddha's teaching, if you take that up and give that up. And this is the beautiful part. Those who gently follow this path of self-control, dul, those who gently follow, don't beat yourself up, don't think you're guilty, don't think you're terrible. Gently follow, meaning you take the time and the discipline to tame your mind. Gently follow, be kind with yourself. Don't add anger and stupidity to taming your mind. Those who gently follow the path of dulwa, self-control, will escape the wheel of rebirth and put an end to pain. Your mind can never conceive of pain like it would have before this. And that, my dear friends, is the end. One last thing. Next week is, thank you, by the way, for listening for the whole thing and staying an extra 9 minutes. Next week, we will have a special class in here, and you're all invited, and I'm inviting you and your friends, because most of the people that came to Nepal with us this trip for 108 Lives, where we tried to put into practice these philosophies, but really hung out with monks and kids and played and danced and whatever, have the most beautiful stories and the most beautiful images, and we're just going to have a little share food, a slideshow, and we're going to talk about practice in a real way. So you're going to hear from, not me, but the people that went to Nepal and their experiences of trying to be in another world and connect in the world with a different mindset. So those people are Jenna, Steve, and what's your name? Gabe, and Emily, and you will see maybe Jacqueline, haven't confirmed, and Peter and Shaket. Yeah. But you'll also get to see little videos and little stories, and we'll tell you about 108 Lives. And the donations for that night will go to the Three Jewel Cell for our moving fund. So it's just more of a relaxed, practical experience of what's a 108 Lives trip like, and what can we tell you that's awesome about hanging out with monks in Mustang. And lastly, we can't forget to offer and dedicate, so let's do that.
Sashi
Kuki Jushin Metoptram Rira Vinchin Indeyam Hadi Sunge Shindu Mitewarhi Raghunanda Shinha Jiparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Ninyatayami
Gewa
Digoku Sunam Yeshe Soksokshim Sunam Yeshe Jungwe Ramba Kuni Topasho. If you could just grab the thought that whatever insight you got today, may it land as their own particular flavor to anybody and everybody in the world that needs insight right now. Give it away, whatever nice experience you've had, if it was any realization or any hope of one. And may the world be filled with them.
Thank you, Hector.
Thank you. Sorry it went over.
God damn it.
So please